Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video on the Minestom Minecraft server development series. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys about inventories. Alright, so hopefully you guys know what an inventory is. It's just, what the player uses to store items and stuff like that, including their armor. But there's also other inventories like chest inventories, the ender chest, anything where like you open a window and you have items inside of it, like an anvil, for example, a horse, all kinds of stuff like that. Enchanting tables, those are all considered inventories. And what we can do is actually create custom inventories within Minestom and display them to a player. And then we can have the player do whatever they want with them, such as storing items, or probably the most common thing that you can do with an inventory, which is really cool, is use them as GUIs, graphical user interfaces. And basically all that means is that you can use an inventory as a menu. So you show a bunch of items in the inventory, and those can represent buttons. And whenever a player clicks on one of those buttons, a specific thing happens. Maybe they're taken to another inventory, or maybe the player poops themselves, something like that, right? So knowing how to create these custom inventories and work with them is very important. To test this out, we're going to make a new command called the vault command. And all this command is going to do is whenever you type /vault, it's just going to open up a small little inventory that the player can use to store items. This will allow us to learn and test how you're supposed to make, new inventories. All right, so to create an inventory, we can do var inventory or specify the type, which is inventory if you want to. And then we could do new inventory. So you can do inventory type, and this is an enum. So inventory type dot. You have all these options here. Some of these you're probably going to recognize, like a beacon, an anvil, cartography, blast furnace, brewing stand. But then you also have these other ones like chest 1 row, chest 2 row, chest 6 row. This is just a standard chest inventory, which is 9 slots across. But you can basically choose how many rows you want to appear. So if you just want a small little inventory with 9 slots for the inventory, you can do the chest 1 row. If you want 54 slots, which is 6 rows, you can do chest 6 row, which I believe is the biggest inventory that you can have. You can even do a crafting table, so crafter 3x3. There's also crafting, I don't really know the difference, but the point is that you can choose all these different types here, even things that you don't really normally consider to be an inventory, and you can use these to represent, things like graphical user interfaces like I told you about before, which is pretty cool. Let's start just by doing the window 3x3 one just for fun. So that's the inventory type, but now you can specify the inventory title, which is the text that appears above the inventory inside the window. So for this, you can specify a string, or you can do a text component, which we learned about. So if we want to have like coloring and stuff like that, we can do a text component, and we could say something like item vault. And let's just actually take this and move it into a variable. So say inventory name is equal to component.text, and then we'll add some color to that. And we'll make it named text color gold, and then we'll make it bold as well. So text decoration bold. There we go. And I will pass that in. So inventory name like that. So now we've created this new inventory, and with this variable, you can do different stuff like making it so that someone is a viewer, change who's holding it. You can add an item stack. You can update the title of the inventory. Probably the most popular one is going to be adding item stacks, because the whole point of inventories is to hold items. And like I said, if you use them as a GUI, then you want options in those inventories. So adding these item stacks is, very important to be able to do. Other than calling methods upon those inventory objects, what you can also do is make it so that it opens for a specific player. In this case, it would be the person who ran the command. So let's make sure that it is an actual player first, because you cannot open an inventory for the console, for example. So sender instance of player. Make sure you import player from Minestom. So if it's a player, then we can go ahead and do player dot open inventory, and then just pass in an inventory. So inventory, just like that. We'll send them a message as well saying opened inventory, and that's it. So to create an inventory, you just simply do new inventory, tell it the type, tell it the name, and then you can open the inventory for a player by doing player.open inventory. Very, very easy. Let's go ahead and register this command and try it out. Okay, we're on the server now, so to test this out, we can do /vault. And look at that, we got our item vault, we got our gold text, which looks extremely ugly, but it's there. You can see that you can provide that custom title, which is really cool. But you can also see that now you have a 3x3 grid that you can use for whatever purpose you want. So if I had items in here, I could simply put them into the inventory and, move them around, all kinds of stuff like that. Just like you would expect with a normal inventory, which is below. This is the player inventory down here. So technically we have two different inventories open, the player inventory and our custom inventory that we just created. Now that we know how to create inventories and open them for players, which is the most important thing that you could do with an inventory, now I want to show you guys how you can handle inventory events. If you come from other frameworks like maybe Bucket, the way that you would handle inventory events is by, making a listener for it, and then you have to somehow figure out which inventory that is referencing. Luckily within Minestom, they make it pretty easy because they have event nodes that are able to filter out different things based on conditions. So let me give you an example here. This was taken from the documentation. So after we create this inventory, what we can do is create a new event node. We'll call it the vault node. We'll say vault inventory node is equal to event node dot type. And if you don't remember how this works, then go back to my event listeners episode. And then we're just going to give it a name. We're going to call it the vault inventory. And now it wants a events filter, which we can provide by doing events filter dot inventory. And what this will give you is a event node that can only have listeners that are related to inventories, which alone is awesome. But what we can also do is add a predicate to this. And so we'll expand the lambda here. And what this will do is give you access to the event and also the inventory. So we can do inventory 1 is equal to inventory. So what this will do is return true, return false. So what this will actually do is make it so that this will be an events node specifically for this inventory that we just created, because we're adding a predicate here that only returns true when the inventory involved matches this current inventory that we created. So basically what that means is that we're creating a event node specifically for this inventory alone. And that means that any listeners that we add to this node here all will be only for this inventory, which is pretty cool. And I don't want to understate the benefit of this. Basically, like I said before, with other frameworks like Bucket, you would have to, add a listener and then somehow figure out if that, inventory involved matches the current inventory that you want to handle. In this case, since we have an event node for a specific inventory, we don't have to worry about that at all. It literally matches to the exact inventory, which is awesome. Let's try adding a listener to this. So we can do vault inventory node dot add a listener. And now it wants the event that we want to listen to, so you can just start typing inventory, and this gives you pretty much a list of all the different inventory related events that we can listen to. So the pre-click event, the close event, the click event, pre-click event, item change event. That's pretty much it. I think those are the major ones. Inventory open, inventory close. So let's just try the inventory click event. That's probably the most popular one, or pre-click. And so now every time, we run some code, whenever this inventory is clicked, it will only happen for this inventory, of course, because, the node is filtered to that specific inventory. Let's just make this pretty simple. So we're just going to make it so that whenever this inventory is clicked, we're going to send the person who clicked it a message saying, you clicked the inventory. Something interesting is that when you do events, you have access to the information about the event, like the player, the clicked item, the inventory itself, the click type, the slot, and the cursor item. For the click type, this is going to be an enum, like, for example, click type. And you have all these different types of clicks. So you have left click, change held, double click, drop, right click. So you can have really fine-grained control over how you want things to happen whenever someone clicks your inventory in a certain way. So you could have it basically distinguish between a left click and a right click. So if they left click a specific item, something happens. But if they right click that same item, something different can happen, which is really cool. But another thing that you have access to is the slot. So the slot is basically the slot in the inventory where the click happened. So I'll explain that in a second. Let's just start by printing these out so we have an idea of what slots we're clicking on. So we'll do events.getPlayer.sendMessage, events.getSlot. And this is returning an int, so it's kind of complaining about that. So I'll just wrap it with a string like that. And one other thing that we can print out, just to show as much information as possible, is the material of the item that was clicked. So we can do events.getClickedItem. This is very important because, you want to handle stuff differently depending on which item they click. So getClickedItem.material, and then .name, which will print out the material name. So what we have done here is added a click event to our inventory event node that is only for this specific inventory here. And so whenever this inventory is clicked, it will run this code here. You can add as many listeners as you want, and they will all just be for this specific inventory, which is, again, really cool in my opinion. So one thing that we need to do before we can actually test this out is add our event node to the global event handler, because if we just create this and don't use it anywhere, nothing's going to happen. We're just creating it for no reason. So we can do that, I'm sure, a bunch of different ways, but an easy way is just to do Minecraft server.get global event handler.add child, and we could add the vault inventory node that we created before. So now not only will the node be added to our global event handler, but so will the listeners added to that node as well, and other children. So let's try this out. Okay, back in the server, so we can do /vault, and here's our custom inventory here. So if we click an item, boom, it says you click the inventory, 0 for the slot number, and then Minecraft error is the type. That's something that I should mention. So whenever you have an inventory, slot that is empty, that is not going to be like null or something like that. The material for that is going to be error, okay? So that's just important to know. As you see, when I click around, it's printing out all this information here. You can see that the slot numbers are changing. And basically the way it works is kind of self-explanatory. It's top to bottom, so top left to bottom right. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Something that you have to remember though is that it's 0 based. So the first slot is not going to be 1, it's going to be 0. So 0, 1, 2. Hopefully this is all helpful so far and interesting. It's pretty easy to be able to create these inventories and display them to the user. Anyways, another thing that I'll note here is that whenever you close this inventory after opening it for the player, the inventory is gone. If you want everything inside the inventory to be saved and you want to reopen it for the player at some point, you just need to move this into some place where it's like not going to be deleted once they run this, because right now, since this is a local variable inside of this set default executor method here, it will obviously not exist anymore after the player closes it, because it no longer is part of any scope or whatever. Okay, but what I want to do is actually make another command here so that we can get some more practice working with these inventories. We're going to call this one the menu command, just so that I can show you guys an actual example of creating a GUI menu. So, and just like before, basically if the person who ran this command is a player, then what I want to do is open an inventory for that player, but give them a bunch of options that they can click on. Yet again, let's open an inventory. So var inventory is equal to new inventory. We're going to do the inventory type, and we can choose one that sort of fits what we're trying to do here. We just want to have a small GUI menu, so I'm just going to go ahead and do chest 1 row, which should just be 9 slots in a single row, kind of like a chest. And then we'll give it a name. We'll call it menu. And now at this point, since we have created it, it's just going to be an empty inventory. So we need to actually add items to it. So we can do that from what we learned from last episode. So we can have different items like var fart is equal to item stack dot builder. We can pass in the material for that. So material dot dirt. And then we can give it a custom name like component dot text fart. Color, we can do text color dot, let's just do color. And what we can do is just give it a random color and then use this little tool here to customize that color, which is pretty useful. Set it to some kind of orange brown color. So that's the color for the text, and we'll add a text decoration of, let's do bold. So text color or text decoration bold. Okay, here's 2 more items for feed and kill. So for feed, it's going to be a bread, it's going to say feed in bold. For kill, it's going to be a diamond sword, it's going to say kill in bold. Okay, so these items here can represent the buttons for our inventory. So to add them to our inventory, we can do inventory that add item stack. And what this will do is if you just pass in an item stack, it's just going to add it to the first available slot. Or if you want to, you can do set item stack like that. And then for this one, you can provide a slot number, a specific slot number, and the actual item stack that you want to add. We know that 0 is going to be the first slot, so we can do 0 and then fart if you want it to be like that. And then we can do inventory.set item stack 4 and feed. And we can do inventory.set item stack 7 or 8 rather, and kill. And I'll show you guys what that looks like in just a second here, okay? So just to recap, we're creating this inventory, we're creating the items that are going to be displayed in the inventory, and then actually adding them to the inventory in specific slots. And then now what we can do is do player.open inventory and then pass it in. So now it should be displayed to the player at that point in time. Okay, we're back on the server, so we can do /menu. And look at that, here's our menu, our custom menu that we've created. We can see our fart item, our feed item, and our kill item. So it looks awesome, right? So you can move them around as much as you want. Probably don't want this if you're having like a menu, for example, though, but I'll show you guys how to cancel that. You can move them around, you can move them into your personal inventory if you want to. You can close it, reopen it. What that is going to do is create a new inventory, because we're creating a new inventory every single time we run the command. But, we can steal some more items if you want to, LOL. The next step here will be to add listeners for this one in the same way that we did for the previous one, so that when you click on these different buttons here, stuff actually happens. What I think we should do is separate this code here into a separate method, just so that it's a little more structured. So we'll take all of that, and then we'll go down here and do private inventory create inventory. And then we'll have it return the inventory that is created. We'll do var inventory is equal to new inventory. There we go. So now we can go back up here and do var inventory is equal to create inventory, just like that. So let's go ahead and add that event node now. So we'll do menu inventory node is equal to event node dot type. And this is going to be called the menu inventory, something like that. Just menu inventory is probably good. And then we'll do event filter inventory. So it's specifically for inventory events. And then now we'll add our condition here so that it only does the inventory that we currently have. So inventory 1 is equal to inventory, just like that. And then we could simplify this by doing Alt Enter, replace with lambda, and you can move that into a new line if that's easier to read. And so now that we have this event node here, what we can do is add a listener to it, or whatever listeners that we want to have. In Minestom, you have two events for the click event. You have the inventory click event itself, but then you also have the inventory pre-click event class. It's not exactly clear to me which one you should use at all times, but the Java docs do give you a little bit of information here. So if you do Control Q on the inventory click event, it says called after the inventory pre-click event, which makes sense. This event cannot be canceled, and items related to the click are already moved. So for the pre-click event, it says called before inventory click event, used to potentially cancel the click. So all I know is that the pre-click event is useful when you want to potentially cancel the click from going through. So if that's something that you want to do, then you should probably listen to that one. But for the inventory click event, you can still get the items that were clicked, for example, but you just can't cancel the event. So the documentation also says the inventory pre-click event allows modification of the raw information about the click, such as the click slots, the click type, which button was used, etc. And this occurs before the click is processed. And then the inventory click event allows modification of the slot changes and side effects that occur as the result of the click via event.getChanges instead of just the click info. So my understanding is that for the inventory pre-click event, that is useful if you want to modify the click itself, like canceling the entire event, or change the click type or the button or anything like that. But the inventory click event is kind of sort of as if the click already happened and you just want to process what happens after that has occurred. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and do the inventory pre-click event, and then I'm going to add a lambda for that and change this to event. And the reason why we want to cancel something like the inventory click event using the pre-click event listener is because when we do set cancel to cancel it, this will prevent the user of the inventory from moving items around. So anytime you want to have something like a GUI where you just want them to click on items and not move the items around, then canceling the pre-click event will allow you to have that, functionality, okay? Besides that, you can also get information about the event, just like the click event. You can get the clicked item, the click type. So we saw that before, the slot, same as before. But since it's the pre-click event, you can modify the clicked item and also the cursor item if you want to. So we can do something like var clicked item is equal to event.getClickedItem. And then we could say if clicked item is equal to fart, for example. I guess fart isn't within the scope here. So what we can do is either make fart a variable of the entire class that exists for every single, running of this command here, or we can just take this and move it inside the creation of the inventory, which I'll do that for this simple example here. So I'll just move it down here. And so now fart is just this variable that we have above, which is the inventory item. And so if a fart happens, we'll just do event.getPlayer.sendMessage, you farted. Clicked item is equal to food. What does it feed? And we could add stuff for that as well. All right, so hopefully you understand what's happening here. Basically, it's going to listen for the inventory pre-click event. As we know, this will automatically match to the current inventory, which is the menu inventory. So we know that we can just go ahead and cancel it without checking anything since we know it's that inventory, which will make it so that you cannot move any items in this inventory since it's just a menu, right? And then we're also getting the clicked item. So the item that was clicked, we're getting it the actual item stack of it. If you do Control Q, it tells you the return type. So this is the item stack of the item that was clicked. And we're checking to see if it's equal to our fart item stack, if it's equal to our feed item stack, or our kill item stack. If it's equal to any of those, we're going to run different code depending on which one was selected, okay? This is a very simple way of handling inventory clicks. And let's not forget, we need to add this event node to our global event handler, just like that. Okay, back on the server now, so we'll do /menu. We can go ahead and click these now, and it says you farted. If I click error, nothing happens because it's not matching to any of those else if statements. And look at that. So it's able to distinguish between the different items. And also you'll notice that whenever I open the menu, you cannot move any of these items around because we are canceling the inventory pre-click event. So it's going to prevent it from going through essentially. Pretty freaking cool. And I just want to reiterate, you have a lot of control over these events here. So, for example, we can get the click type again, right? We could say if inventory get click type is equal to click type dot left click. Let's say that we only want all of this code to run for left click and not for right click, right? We could even have it only be canceled for left click, but if they want to move the items around, they can right click or, do some other type of click. We can have that, right? So let's try that out. So now if I left click, it's still going to work the same as before, but if I right click, now I can move these items around and it won't prevent me or print any of those messages because the rest of that code is not being ran because it doesn't pass the condition, obviously. I can even shift click if I want to. So you could do it like this if you want to. You could also do like an early return. So if it's not equal, you could, maybe return like that and then run the code. You could also, we learned about before the events listener builder. So if we just take all of this code here, delete this part, get rid of this part, and do event listener.builder. We can tell it the class that we're trying to listen to, which is the inventory pre-click event.class, and then we can build onto that. So we can do build, and then we can add a handler, which is going to be all of this code like that. We'll rename this to event. And then what we could also do is add a filter. So the filter, instead of having that if statement that we had before, that would be in one of the filters. So we can add as many filters as we want, but we could say something like return inventory pre-click event dot get click type is equal to click type left click. So this will make it so that this listener here only runs for inventory click events that are using the left click. Okay. One more thing I want to show you guys is there's something cool that you can do. Again, there's a lot of different listeners you can do, right? Just besides the click listener and the pre-click listener, you can also do something like the inventory close listener, or rather events, inventory close event listener. So like that. And what you can do is, since this listener is only tied to this specific inventory, whenever someone closes the inventory after being opened, it's obviously going to trigger the inventory close event. So this will listen to it. And then what you could do is actually have it delete the node. So you can get the global event handler and you can do remove child. So remove child, menu inventory node. So down here, we're adding it at the end of this, method here. But once the listener has detected that the inventory has been closed, it will automatically remove it. So we're not just having event nodes that we don't need. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this episode, guys. Hopefully you found this video interesting and now you guys know how to create inventories and how to work with them. I think it's really cool because in my servers, I like to have, graphical user interfaces, menus and stuff like that. And I think it will be useful for your servers as well. And then you can also add the listeners, which is really cool too. So hopefully you guys found all of that interesting, and I'll see you guys next time. So that's it for this video, everybody. I really hope you learned something new. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also check the description below for important links to code and other resources, but also really important, join our Discord. We have a big community of over 5,000 programmers, and it's a place where you can find new friends or get help on any code that you're stuck on. If you want to support what I do on this channel, please consider hitting the join button below, and this will allow you to support my channel for as low as $1 a month, but there are different tiers to choose from if you want to. For anyone that becomes a member on my channel, you get a special rank on my Discord server, early access to new videos, and you can just see yourself on the screen right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. Thank you so much. And that's it. Peace.